We'd hoped to be off the Twitter beat by now, since there was actual news happening in the world, but there was a development in the president's ongoing feud with a certain cable news outlet that we felt was revealing enough to bring you details of tonight. Remember that professional wrestling video the president tweeted out the other day, the one with the CNN logo superimposed on the face of the villain? How could you forget that? Well, we interrupt this broadcast for some breaking news, because CNN had its own crack investigative team working through the night to hunt down who made that seconds-long piece of tape, because nothing is more important than that. And in the end, of course, they found out. We'll let them explain what happened next.
The Reddit user behind it posted his apology after CNN identified and tried to contact him. He apologized for some of his other posts that were racist and anti-Semitic. Now, CNN is not publishing the user's name because of his apology, his removal of all the offensive posts, and his pledge not to repeat this behavior on social media.
Well, there's a lot to unpack here. First, one of the biggest news organizations in the world spent a ton of money and a ton of time trying to find out who made this video. Now, you probably don't care who made it, because why would you care? Some guy on the internet, crushing him is not that important. But CNN felt it was vital. Why did they feel that way? Because in politics, all dissent merits a response, even if it was a joke. Whatever it takes to beat your opponent, in this case Trump, is worth doing. So this is Oppo research posing as journalism. Then there's the question of this guy's name. CNN is keeping it secret. Why are they doing that? Well, as you just heard them explain, because the man in question has apologized and promised he'll never do it again. Wait a second. When did CNN become a law enforcement agency or a religious order? Since when is it CNN's job to police the internet for immorality, to spare punishment in return for repentance? Maybe they'll start selling indulgences next. But that was just the first explanation for why they're withholding the name. CNN later announced that it has, quote, decided not to publish the name of the Reddit user out of concern for his safety. But that turned out to be an even more problematic explanation, since the network had already announced that if the naughty internet guy in question ever got naughty on the internet again, for example, by, I don't know, criticizing CNN, then they'd release his name, which by their own description might imperil his life, which to a lot of people seemed pretty much like blackmail. Do as we say or we'll hurt you. Conventional news organizations don't typically make threats like that, ever. So it was another tough day for CNN today. One of their morning show anchors may have come up with the simplest answer of all. Let social media decide what to do about this guy's identity. Twitter, the perfect forum for thorny moral questions. Here's the quote. Should CNN reveal name of Reddit user who made Trump wrestling video? That's a tweet from Chris Cuomo. Quote, had a lot of bigoted and hateful material on page and website. Okay, so releasing this guy's name would endanger his safety, but then again, he's got, quote, bigoted and hateful material on his website, so maybe he deserves it. You decide, citizens of Twitter. Spare or kill him, your call. This is getting grotesque. We were all better off when CNN stuck to wars and hurricanes and missing airplanes. Mark Stein is a longtime news watcher, an author and a columnist, and he joins us tonight. Why? I'm wondering this. They put their crack investigators on the question of who made this dumb internet gif. Why not find out where al-Baghdadi is or something?
Yeah.
If you're that good at finding stuff.
Right, that's what your investigative unit should be doing. This guy is entirely tangential to it. The way things work on the internet is somebody sends somebody a picture, and that person emails it to somebody else, and that person tweets it to somebody else, and 37,000 links later, it's become a thing, and nobody cares who created it or what other content he has created. Even if you accept that Chris Cuomo's definition of hate speech and bigoted and racist and anti-Semitic material ought to be the standard applied across the internet. Basically, a major news organization is policing some no-name schlub's internet content and threatening to reveal his identity if he transgresses their particular standards. That's completely nuts. I mean, Wolf Blitzer has basically put a horse's head in this guy's bed. And I don't know how this happened. CNN was like the world's most boring cable network just a month ago. Now it's behaving more and more nuttily each day.
So that's too good. So, but I mean, they seem to have come up with this kind of remarkable standard. They said, look, we're not releasing the guy's name because it would be a threat to his safety, presumably his physical safety.
Right.
But we're going to release his name if he says something we don't like. Now, people are calling that blackmail.
Right.
I don't know if it's blackmail exactly, but it's pretty weird for a news organization to, in effect, threaten harm if someone doesn't do what they say.
Well, the name is either newsworthy or it's not. But he got the message, they contacted him, and he immediately takes down all his internet posts. Now, I'm not a great believer in anonymity on the internet. I get tired of being called out by some twerp who has, you know, some butch name and an avatar from Game of Thrones, but he thinks that I'm not being manly enough on the internet. I'm not a particular fan of internet anonymity. But this guy got the message. He understands that CNN is watching him. So that if he were to make another anti-CNN GIF, another anti-CNN tweet, then they would release the fact that he's got a $500 lien on his home for unpaid property taxes, or his car was seen last Tuesday night parked outside Madame Fifi's bondage parlor. This is a ridiculous way for a news organization to behave. But the threat of people like Chris, and the idea, by the way, of Chris Cuomo and other CNN anchors saying, oh, we're so relieved. At last, you know, there were physical threats to our safety. And at last, we're all relieved because now we've got the goods on this guy and we can sleep at night and journalists are free to walk the streets once more. Get lost, you creeps. The 5th anniversary of the Danish cartoons, I appeared on stage with 5 other people. Of those 5 other people I was on stage with in Copenhagen for the 5th anniversary of the Danish Mohammed cartoons, one was shot at point-blank range, the other had his event shot up, and 2 people were killed. Another was forced out of public life entirely, and the 4th had her family's restaurant firebombed. Those are real threats against media figures that go on in Europe right now. The idea that reworking a joke that everyone knows is a joke is a threat to Chris Cuomo's safety is the most narcissistic, solipsistic act of navel-gazing by a profession that is already so self-obsessed, nobody who isn't in the media can stand the media.
That's so nicely put. And the sense of humor is always the first thing to go. That's always the sign you've completely lost perspective. CNN has Ministry of Truth. Mark Stein, God bless you for coming on. Thank you. During a joint news conference with the Polish president, Trump criticized CNN for hounding that anonymous Reddit user who had the gall to create an anti-CNN GIF featuring the president.
What CNN did was unfortunate for them. As you know now, they have some pretty serious problems. They have been fake news for a long time. They've been covering me in a very dishonest way. What CNN and others, I mean, not others, NBC is equally as bad, despite the fact that I made them a fortune with The Apprentice, but they forgot that. But I will say that CNN has really taken it too seriously, and I think they've hurt themselves very badly, very, very badly.
Whoa! Well, as you can imagine, that led the newscast on lots of other channels today, overpaid cable anchors calling it, in effect, unpatriotic to criticize them while being on foreign soil. Watch.
American presidents traveling abroad typically uphold American values such as press freedom and the institution of the presidency. Mr. Trump, for his own reasons, did not.
He got savaged for attacks against some people in the media. It does not help his poll numbers.
His media comments of a piece with everything he said before, but the timing of it on foreign soil before a summit in a region of the world where the question of press freedom is still a really important one. No other president in our lifetime probably ever would say such a thing.
You couldn't make it up. Joe Concha follows this stuff for a living. He writes about media for The Hill, and he joins us now. So now, Joe, it's unpatriotic. By the way, the president, we opened with this. I'm not a reflexive defender of the guy, but he just gave a speech defending Western civilization and freedom of expression. But now the press is telling us it's unpatriotic for him to criticize them. How does that work? I thought it was unpatriotic to criticize soldiers on foreign soil, but now cable anchors are in the same category? How does this work?
How does it work? It works in a way of selective outrage, Tucker, because I don't know if you saw Maxine Waters' tweet that came out just a couple hours ago. She said about Donald Trump, our president on foreign soil with foreign leaders, all right? Because apparently this is against the rules as well. Only a weak and impotent leader would spend more time attacking his predecessor in the free press than those in the world truly threatening us. So then I looked at the Twitter feeds of all the people you just played, and no one seems to be condemning Ms. Waters for making that mistake of criticizing a president while he's overseas. So until I see that, this is the definition of selective outrage, and it's phony.
But is this a long-standing tradition that you don't criticize cable anchors when you're outside of American borders? I mean, is that an assault on our flag and our history, do you think?
I don't believe so. I believe that is Trump exercising his First Amendment right. And he was asked a question from a reporter about that CNN situation yesterday. You talked about it on your show with Mark Stein. That was a very colorful conversation, particularly the horse in the bed thing from The Godfather. I like that. As far as CNN tracking down an anonymous troll who created a Twitter meme, a wrestling meme of Trump wrestling a logo to the ground. It's so silly and so preposterous, no one would take it seriously. And then the network actually threatening to expose this person if he acted inappropriately on the internet ever again. That's called doxing. That was something that was condemned by the left and the right. And CNN, it was just another self-inflicted wound that the president was addressing during a press conference where he was asked a question and he gave an answer. Is he a traditional president? No. But you ask a question, you give an answer. That's how it works.
You know, my unsolicited editorial is you get a lot out of laughing at things once in a while. Like, you can't be outraged all the time about everything. It's not a good look. So what's going on? You're a media reporter. You follow this stuff carefully. CNN has had an awful lot of crises in the past few weeks. Is there any indication that the people who run the place are looking within and saying, you know, maybe we didn't make all the mistakes we're accused of, but we made some and we're going to fix them? Is there any sense of that?
I don't see that in terms of the public comments, in terms of the Twitter feeds of some of the on-air personalities and the network president. They seem to be playing the card that they are the victims here, that Donald Trump, the president, is bullying them, that conservative media is bullying them, and they don't seem to be acknowledging the myriad of mistakes that they have made. And I would say this is the worst stretch in the 37-year history of CNN. Just think of the aggregate for a second, Tucker. You had two major retractions in June, one of which involving Anthony Scaramucci, who is a Trump ally, that led to 3 resignations of highly decorated reporters. You had Kathy Griffin holding up the fake severed head of Donald Trump that led to her getting fired from the network's New Year's Eve coverage. You had Reza Islan, who was a host, who was fired because he called the president POS. You had producers caught on camera in undercover videos talking about how the narrative in Russia is mostly BS and that American voters are stupid. And then obviously the July 4th situation with the Reddit troll that they said they would expose if he acted inappropriately. All of these things in aggregate, Tucker, is horrible. And then today you had Chris Cillizza, who is their political editor at large, who actually put up a video, a 2-second video that appeared to show Donald Trump being blown off by the Polish First Lady. Except that if you watch that video for 4 more seconds, and by the way, Cillizza says, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God," on his Twitter feed in all caps. If you watch the whole thing, as you see there, of course she shakes President Trump's hand. She went to Melania Trump first, and she shook Donald Trump's hand again. And yet you have Chris Cillizza, who is an important person there, not understanding that there's so much scrutiny around this network right now that when you put out fake videos like that with false editing, it only leads to the perception that CNN is the opposition party. And that is why when a Harvard study comes out, 93% of their coverage of the Trump administration is negative. This only feeds into the narrative that CNN is not acting like the impartial, objective network they claim to be.
That's, you know, I still have friends there. I think they're dying. This is so embarrassing for them.
It's got to be tough, right? It's a tough business, and for this to happen on a daily basis where your network's called out, I couldn't imagine what it's like. Because unless you're on air, you don't get paid a lot, and the hours stink, and you work